a Russian missile strike ripped through Sumy. The city shuddered, smoke filled the sky. When the dust settled, the casualties were horrifying. 88 civilians lay wounded, many of them children. Homes were shattered. A school, a place of learning, was reduced to rubble. The attack on Sumy was a harsh reminder of the brutal reality of war. It underscored the vulnerability of innocent lives, and it cast a long shadow over any talk of peace. The images from Sumy sent shockwaves around the world. How could this happen, many asked, while peace talks were supposedly underway? The timing seemed calculated to inflict maximum damage, both physically and psychologically. It was a stark illustration of the chasm between words and actions. The attack on Sumy had a profound impact on the Ukrainian people. It shattered any lingering hope that Russia was genuinely interested in peace. Many saw it as proof that Moscow's peace overtures were nothing more than a cynical ploy. The Kremlin, they argued, was simply trying to buy time and deflect international pressure. In the aftermath of the attack, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the nation. His voice trembled with anger and grief as he condemned the strike. "This is what Russia calls a cessation of hostilities," he said. "This is their understanding of peace talks." The missile strike on Sumy sent shockwaves through the ongoing peace talks. Ukraine, understandably, was outraged. President Zelensky accused Russia of blatant hypocrisy. How, he asked, could Moscow talk about peace while simultaneously raining down death and destruction on Ukrainian civilians? Zelensky's outrage resonated throughout Ukraine. People felt betrayed, manipulated. The attack on Sumy, they argued, exposed Russia's true intentions. It proved that the Kremlin was not interested in a just and lasting peace. Rather, they were using the talks as a smokescreen to advance their own strategic objectives. International condemnation of the Sumy attack was swift and widespread. World leaders denounced Russia's actions as barbaric and unconscionable. The United Nations called for an immediate investigation into potential war crimes. The attack, they argued, constituted a flagrant violation of international law. Despite the outrage, the peace talks continued. But the atmosphere was palpably different. Gone was the cautious optimism that had characterized earlier rounds of negotiations. In its place was a deep sense of mistrust and skepticism. In the midst of this volatile situation, a controversial figure re-emerged on the world stage: former U.S. President Donald Trump. Trump, who had maintained close ties with Putin during his presidency, announced that he would be leading a U.S. delegation to Riyadh for a new round of peace talks. Trump's involvement was met with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Some saw it as a positive development, a sign that the United States was serious about finding a peaceful resolution to the conflict. Others, however, were more skeptical. They pointed to Trump's history of cozying up to dictators and his often erratic foreign policy decisions. The talks in Riyadh focused on a limited 30-day ceasefire, primarily aimed at protecting energy infrastructure. The goal was to create a breathing space for further negotiations on a more comprehensive peace agreement. But the talks were fraught with challenges, not least of which was the deep mistrust between the two sides. Adding to the complexity was the issue of Ukraine's critical minerals. These minerals, vital for the production of high-tech components, had become a major point of contention. Russia was keen to secure access to these resources, while Ukraine was determined to maintain control over its own natural wealth. The road to peace in Ukraine is long and fraught with obstacles. The missile strike on Sumy, coming at a time when peace talks were supposedly underway, highlighted the fragility of the situation. It underscored the deep mistrust between the two sides and the challenges of finding a lasting solution. The involvement of Donald Trump in the peace process has added another layer of complexity. Trump's unorthodox approach to diplomacy and his history of making controversial statements have raised concerns among some observers. Only time will tell whether his involvement will prove to be a help or a hindrance to the peace process. One thing is clear: there are no easy answers. The conflict in Ukraine is the result of complex historical, political, and economic factors. Any lasting solution will require compromise and concessions from all sides. The international community has a vital role to play in supporting the peace process. This includes providing humanitarian assistance to those affected by the conflict, maintaining pressure on Russia to de-escalate the situation, and working to address the underlying issues that have fueled the conflict.